guys? Bit of a different video today. This wasn't planned. This is what happens when you promise to do a simple job for somebody. So a lot of you guys might recognize this. This is the standard Crosman revolver that you can still get nowadays. This one has the white ammo clip for it. So what am I doing to this and why? So what's happening is I've already partly disassembled this, but right here, that's the latch that's supposed to hold the barrel shut. And what they did was they just put a piece of rubber under there to keep it in the up position. But this pistol's got to be 30 years old, probably somewhere around there. So rubber doesn't last 30 years. So I said to my friend, hey, I'll fix that, no problem whatsoever. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. But, yeah, no, it's not that simple. So that fix is kind of easy. I'll show you how to fix that problem. But when I opened this up, I found this little piece of plastic. So I've already partly disassembled this. Like I said, I wasn't planning on doing the video. So there's a screw here. There's a screw here. Lift this off. There's a screw here. This is where your CO2 canister goes. And then once you have that, the whole panel lifts off, and this is what you're left with here. It's the reason why I decided to do the video is actually kind of interesting. So this bar here actuates your pawl to rotate little ratchets here. Interesting setup. I find it quite interesting. I've never seen this on a real pistol. It works well. Keeps the timing. Just plastic parts. So that's that bar. Without that bar, the pawl just comes loose. So there's the pawl by itself. So you're left with a couple of things here. The barrel, that can come right off. Alright. So now you have these two silver things here. This is the hookup for the CO2. And this long brass bar here is actually an air tube to transfer the high pressure CO2 over to the cylinder here. The cylinder gets hit on the back here by this, on this plunger by the hammer. That will release the CO2 out the little hole in the front of the recoil plate. So this part here, the recoil plate, and that comes out. So we go back to this piece of plastic here. I've already tried fixing it and it's not working, so I got a plan B I'm going to implement today. What it was, this was supposed to be attached here, and the pawl fits up into this little cutout. Sorry guys, the lighting's a little off today. It's very bright sunlight in my shed. So it pushes the cylinder up and around. So I got to replace that. But we'll go on to the mechanism. So here's the hand, the little latch. This latch fits up in here and latches the barrel shut. And you push down, the barrel opens. So in here was a piece of rubber that was glued in. Right up in here there was rubber all up in this area that was acting as like a spring. So all I did was I took a piece of piano wire, bent it that way, down, across, and then up, and that's going to be my spring. That is actually quite simple. And it's just trapped underneath the rear sight. That gives me the rigidity that I need to keep everything in place. But I wanted to show you the rest of the hammer mechanism, because I actually thought this was kind of interesting. This is very much in here a proper revolver. It's kind of interesting. It has a hammer block as its safety, this little cue here. This back here is the hammer spring. So it's pushing up, hammer spring rotates around here, tucks up under there, pushes the whole hammer forward. But I want to get to the actual mechanism. Now that I have the spring out, there's still a trigger return spring here, but when you go double action, you can see it raises the hammer up, and then the hammer will fall forward. Oops, sorry guys. Show that one again. So it comes up, hammer flies forward, back down. And the reason why this is a separate piece, and there's a little spring there, you'll see the hammer when it comes back to reset, pushes that down and slips over. When you go to single action, this is your single action. So this is your double action sear here. This is actually going to be your single action sear. So when it comes back, you heard and you can see it actually latched right here on this. So what happens when you pull the trigger back, it will hit, well, I'll just pull the trigger back. How's that? When you pull the trigger back, you can see it pushes the single action sear out of the way and allows the hammer to fall. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There is a bit of a trigger block up in here. I think it's, I don't know why. I don't think it would function as a drop safety on this. I don't think you need a drop safety on this. It's just a BB gun. But the other thing too is when the guys passed this to me in the store, it was fully loaded in the cylinder, and it had a CO2 container that wasn't punctured, and all you had to do was just tighten this little screw down and you would have had a bad day. Nobody would have died, probably. I don't see how you could, but somebody could have gotten hurt. So, okay, let's get down to how am I going to fix this spring here that was just a piece of plastic originally. My first thought was to use the piano wire as well, but piano wire is, it's good in a pinch, but it's really not ideal in my opinion for something like this. I just thought I could get away with it. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go back to using the shim technique of the stainless steel shims, and I'm just going to glue it in place, and I'm probably going to melt some plastic around it just to make sure it's got a little extra protection from falling loose. So clean the part off, clean the metal off with some non-chlorinated brake cleaner. So you can see there the metal is not the same size, but I wanted it a bit longer because I have to actually glue it to this tab. I wanted it a bit narrower so I can actually melt and maneuver some plastic around the outside of it to hopefully lock it in place a bit better. That's quite a bit of glue. That's okay. Just gluing it up. Ah. You can see why I'm using pliers. Somehow it makes things difficult, but in the end, hopefully. So I'm happy with that placement. And this is a cool trick. This is Instaset. Superglue is interesting. It's a catalytic reaction. So it takes well, the glue, and then it takes an activator, and then, believe it or not, superglue, the activator is just water. Superglue was designed as a surgical emergency suture for the battlefield. You get it in spray form, so if you had an amputated leg, you can spray it on, and the instant it hits the moisture in the skin, it sets. I really don't know the difference between the activator and water, but all I know, now I got my spring back in place. It's actually quite sturdy. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a screwdriver. I'm going to melt the edges of the plastic and push it up and around and kind of form a channel. That way, hopefully, it will just stop it from just completely popping off at some point. Screwdriver. Torch. Torch is kind of overkill, but that's what I have on hand. Alright, that's more than hot enough. So I'm going to get up in here, melt it. It becomes like icing. Go around to the other side, melt it, push it over. And I'm happy with that. A little hard to see, but there's plastic coming up around the edge of the metal, and I'm gonna stop right there and move on to reassembly. Okay, reassembled for the second time, but the first time to you. You can see the rotation's good, latch is good. So this is the CO2. Remember at the beginning of the video I told you this thing was loaded with CO2? This is the CO2. It hasn't been punched. Let's find out whether or not this thing leaks, shall we? And let's find out whether or not the CO2 has CO2 in it. Which I don't know why it wouldn't. So the answer is it leaks. Keep your hands away, guys, when that happens. This is ice cold. And you can burn yourself. I've known people to do that with those. Can you see the steam coming off that, guys? Maybe not. The whole thing is frosted over now, and it's like 30 degrees in my shed. Great way to cool your drink. So why did that happen? You can see gunk in there. I'm going to pause this and poke this. All I did is I just used a screwdriver here, just poked up in here, see if there's any dirt or anything in there. Couldn't see much, so I added a drop of good old-fashioned gun oil. This is a new Crosman. I don't know if this container had something possibly wrong with it, but now we're going to find out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a pair of pliers on hand to really tighten this thing down in case it starts to leak. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Okay, the pistol is beating me. I'm not gonna mess with this. Usually it's a matter of replacing O-rings and stuff like that. I'm not gonna go that far. That's for the next owner. I got functioning right, so this is a relatively minor problem that the next owner will have to figure out. Like I said, it's not a big deal. You guys, if you want to know how to do that, look it up online. Sorry, it's not a complete how to fix even the CO2 problem. I'm going to have to do a video on that in the future, but this is just not going to be it. This is just supposed to be a simple, quick job. I'm done. So I'll put the clippy thing back on. Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a little something from this. Found it interesting as I did looking at the inside of one of these Crosman's. And stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep on keeping on.